Hey everybody, welcome back to Big Wyoming. And then our next reloading series, the This Old Rifle series, you can see that video here. We're going to be using a full-length die. So I thought I'd take the time to make a video about how we set up our full-length dies. So I've got a Redding Deluxe die set. Comes with a bullet seater, full-length die, and a neck die. So one of the first things I do with my dies is I use mineral spirits and I clean them thoroughly when they're brand new. It's always a good idea to disassemble your dies, inspect everything. Kind of gives you a good idea how they work and if there's anything wrong with them. So in this instance, when we push the case up into the die, it's going to move past, a fired case is going to move past this expander ball. It's going to go into the body of the die, squeeze the neck, bump the shoulder. As we bring it back, the neck has been squeezed smaller than the expander ball, and the expander ball is going to set the final neck dimension as we pull the brass across it. So I think there's a couple things we can do with this full-length die to improve that process to get more consistent brass, more consistent neck tension, because the neck tension is very important to our groups on paper. So once the die has been cleaned with mineral spirits, I unscrew this and I pull the pin. I strongly recommend that you do your decapping in a separate process. I also polish that expander ball. I've got some 2000 grit aluminum oxide sandpaper. I'll use water, I'll wet sand it, I'll polish it up real good, make sure it's real smooth. It does not change the final dimension. I suppose a person could if you got really aggressive with it, but we kind of avoid that. So our decapping is done in a separate process. We've got 5 pieces of fired brass. For now, we're going to leave that decapping assembly and the expander ball out of the die, and we're going to install the die into our press. With the ram fully raised, we're going to make sure our die touches the shell holder, and then we're going to back it out about 1/4 of a turn. Bring our lock ring down snug. And we're kind of done with that part of the process. If you've watched any of my other videos, you are familiar with the L.E. Wilson case gauge and the micrometer top. This is how I measure my shoulder bump. Insert the case. Bring it around to where we can read the scale, spin that up, and we get a good reading in thousandths. I spin that a couple times till I feel it bottom out good. So I'm about 4 thousandths right there. Let's read one more just to make sure we're somewhat consistent. Excuse me, that's 3 thousandths. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but we're right at the 3 thousandths mark. So what we're shooting for is we're going to bump that shoulder in the die without the stem installed to make sure we're getting the proper amount of sizing on the case. There's no reason to take the case back to SAMI settings. To me, that's too much sizing. That's overworking your brass. The brass has been annealed, so that kind of helps with that, but at the same time, there's no need to work it that much. We're going to bump that shoulder 2 thousandths is what we're shooting for. 2 to 3 thousandths. This is going to be a hunting rifle. We're going to double check, make sure everything chambers as it should, that we don't have any problems while we're out in the field. So give me a second. I'm going to set the camera up on our press. I'm going to show you how we get that measurement, how we work it in the press, and then finally how we insert the expander ball. We're going to take it towards the top of the die to make sure that neck still has support when it expands. I'll be right back with all that information. Alright, we're back. We got the camera moved around. Hopefully you got a good picture of the die and the press. We installed that a little bit ago. We've got about a dime's worth of gap between the bottom of the die and the top of the shell holder. So we've measured our cases with the L.E. Wilson headspace gauge. We're sitting at about 3 thousandths. We're going to use our Imperial die wax with our stem removed, and we're going to set up the shoulder bump on this full-length sizing die. So once that case is out, we're going to wipe it off. We're going to measure it one more time. And we are right at about 1 thousandths. So we've moved that shoulder back 2 thousandths. So my lock ring was set. I've done this before a few times, but what you'll find on your initial setup is you're either usually too deep, which you bump your shoulder too much, too shallow, you're not bumping your shoulder enough. So you'll have to run this die up and down to get the proper measurement. So we're going to take that brass case, we're going to set it aside, we're going to lube the second one up, and we're going to run it up in the die. We're going to double check our measurement one more time. Things aren't right unless they're repeatable. So back in the Wilson headspace gauge, the micrometer top goes to work, and again we're right at 1,000. So we've got a 2,000 bump on that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install this stem now. We're going to take it down fairly far, maybe about halfway. We're going to bring one more lubed case up into the die. It's going to bump that shoulder, squeeze that neck. Now we're going to screw this stem out until we're at the base of that neck while it's in the part of the die that squeezes it down. Now for this particular reading, that's all the way out. So we're going to set that back in there, and we're going to go about 1 full turn down. We're not going to tighten that lock ring just yet. So we're going to bring the case down. As we feel it come across that sizing button, we're going to push it back up. I don't know if you can see that movement as I'm going back and forth, but that's the slack in our threads. So while I'm holding that up, I'm going to go ahead and bring this lock ring down and tighten it. Now we're going to pull this back across that sizing button. Let's go ahead and do a few more cases while we're here. So once again, Imperial sizing wax, a light coat, up into the die, bump the shoulder, squeeze the neck. It hits that sizing button while the neck's still supported in the die, and then back across the bottom of it. That sets our final neck tension as that button runs through the inside of the neck. And I do find after I polish that button that I really don't need any kind of lube on the inside of the neck. That's something I try to avoid. And with that button being polished, it seems to work out rather well. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll size those 2 cases that were already squeezed down. And you're going to feel some resistance as they go over that button. Squeeze down one more time and then back across. So that's the final setup on our full-length sizing die. You can set up about any brand die like this, your Lees. The Forsters actually come with this feature, I guess you could call it a feature installed, the sizing button is higher in the die already. So if you follow their specific instructions, you get something similar to this. This method is something I found in the book Top Grade Ammo by Glenn Zedeker. I believe it gives me a little better uniformity with my brass when I use a full-length die. Something I suggest maybe you try and see if you see a difference. See if you see a difference on the paper. That's where it's going to be important. With your low SDs, good groups, you can tune your brass a lot more consistently than you can otherwise. So if you want more content like this, I need you to like, I need you to subscribe and share. I appreciate your time. We'll be moving on with our This Old Rifle project. We're going to full-length resize, and this is how our die is set up for that. God bless, and I'll see you on the other side.